Our next speaker, Dr. Nicki Cohen, is professor of music here at Texas Woman's University and is known to many of you, as is Dr. Sahlin. Dr. Cohen earned her Master of Arts in Vocal Performance from the University of Denver and her PhD in Music Education from the University of Kansas. Her teaching and research center around music therapy and music and world culture. She has been invited to lecture nationally and internationally on music therapy and serves on various national boards in her field. Dr. Cohen offers leadership at Congregation Kol Ami through vocal cantoring and leading meditation Shabbat services quarterly. She serves as the musical director for the High Holiday Choir every fall. Dr. Cohen, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be asked to be here and to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is Judaism. I want to start off by giving you just a few basic facts. The word Israel actually comes from Jacob, who of course was the grandson of Abraham, and children of Israel are the grandchildren and all the descendants of Jacob. So Israel is just an alternative word for the name Jacob. The word Jew comes from the Hebrew word Judah, which were one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And some common terms that are used in Judaism: the people are called Jewish, the language is Hebrew, the faith is Judaism, and usually the land associated with the religion of Judaism is Israel, although Jews are found all over the world. The people of Israel are best perceived as an extended family or a tribe. As a matter of fact, there's a common term to be a member of the tribe. And for that reason, Judaism differs a little bit from some of the other religions because a person can be Jewish ethnically or culturally and not necessarily religiously. For part of my life, I was very much an ethnic Jew without being a religious Jew. Now I am both, but there are some Jews who spend their whole lives being more ethnically oriented, culturally Jewish, but not necessarily religiously. Okay, all right. Use my singing voice. Here we go. I'm going to go up a little bit here. All right. As Dr. Sahlin already said, these three religions we're going to be discussing all have purported to start with Abraham, or in Hebrew, Abraham, who was the first strong monotheistic voice and also entered into a covenant with God to spread God's name to all the peoples of the earth. Another very important figure in Judaism was Moses, or in Hebrew, Moshe, who was the one who encountered God through the burning bush on Mount Sinai and was told that he was to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt back into Canaan. Moses was also the person who delivered the 10 Commandments to the people of Israel. Of highest importance to Judaism is participation in the ceremonies, festivals, rituals, and customs that are traditional to the Jewish people. The first one being the Sabbath. The Sabbath is the day of rest. It occurs every Friday evening at sundown to Saturday evening at sundown. And this is the time that Jews put aside their usual labor and spend their time either studying Torah, spending time with their family, eating, resting, watching movies, enjoying themselves. It's a true day of rest. Another very important Jewish symbol is the Torah. The Torah is a Hebrew word that means teaching or instruction or law. It is the name that is commonly associated with the first 5 books of the Jewish Bible. The Torah is parchment that is wrapped up in a scroll, and it is housed in a cabinet called an ark. And when Jews read from the Torah, they use a pointer, as you can see in the picture, called a yod, which is Hebrew for hand, because the fingers contain oils that will actually destroy the parchment. And so Jews are taught not to touch the Torah directly. There are other Jewish symbols, the Star of David or Mogen David, a mezuzah, which Jews put on the outside of their houses to bless the people going in and leaving, the shofar, which is a ram's horn that is used to bring in the new year, every year on Rosh Hashanah. Going over here to the left, menorah, which is used during the holiday of Hanukkah and burns for 8 nights. These women are wearing prayer shawls or tzitzit and what we call yarmulke, or in Hebrew kippah. And on the right-hand side, this is the Hebrew word chai, which means life. And you may have seen a number of these symbols, but not known what they were before, or maybe you do. There are certain symbols in Judaism that are purely feminine. They are Shekhinah and the Sabbath Bride, and also a prayer song called A Woman of Valor. Shekhinah is the feminine aspect of God. As we know, Judaism tends to be associated with a very male-dominant, patriarchal perspective. However, if you look closely enough, there are plenty of feminine perspectives and symbols all the way through the development of Judaism. Shekhinah is the aspect of God that is nurturing, caring, motherly, and more intimate than the transcendent God that we normally associate, which is more of a male figure of God. During the Sabbath, the Shekhinah becomes the Sabbath bride. And the Sabbath bride is actually a bride that all the people of Israel take on as they're the groom and the Sabbath is the bride. And for that period of 24 hours, they are in this beautiful love relationship together. Okay, moving on to Jewish roles in the United States. First of all, I'd like to talk about traditional roles, and then I'll talk about modern roles. We have all come across references to women in the Bible. Oftentimes they are looked upon as being heroines, leaders, luminaries, intellectuals, devoted wives, and devoted leaders. Some of them are Esther, Sarah, Deborah, Miriam, who led the women of Egypt in song. She's one of my favorites. And Rachel, or Rachel. In a traditional Jewish household, the woman runs the household. She is the queen of the household. And there are 2 aspects of worship that the woman is in charge of every week, and that would be, first of all, the lighting of the Sabbath candles, and also the baking of the challah, which is the ceremonial bread that is used on the Shabbat. Also on Shabbat, there is a song that is sung in these more traditional households about a woman. It's a song that honors the women in the household. If you take a look at the words, however, you will see that what it's honoring the women for primarily is the woman's role and function in the household itself, the woman's function as a mother and as a wife. You don't see any references very much to anything outside of the household, but this is a very important part of traditional Judaism, to sing the song, which is translated as A Woman of Valor. In a traditional Jewish household, women are not permitted to be up in front reading from the Torah or leading a service. They are actually segregated from the men, usually by a curtain, and sit in the back of the sanctuary. They cannot lead services. Modern Judaism has a number of different sects. The 2 most known are Reform and Conservative. And modern Judaism came about primarily in Germany in the 19th century as a reaction against the restrictiveness of the more traditional Judaism, which we normally call Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox Judaism. And modern Jews believe that Judaism should be something that's modernized and can be compatible within the culture in which one lives, rather than being segregated or compartmentalized. And modern Judaism is found along a continuum from very liberal to more traditional in nature. Women's roles are much less restricted in modern Jewish practice. For example, going back to the worship now, women can become rabbis, cantors, which are very important musical leaders of services, can lead services, and can serve as presidents of their congregations, or like myself, serve as a musical director of the choir. In the United States at this time, there are 575 female rabbis, and in the Reform tradition, and 273 female rabbis in the conservative tradition. If you look at traditional versus modern and the various scope, looking at work environment, worship environment, public environment, and private, you'll see that in the traditional practice, women work. As a matter of fact, they're usually the ones who support their families while the husbands are studying in the synagogue, and they are very important in the home, but they are not being represented in worship or in public spaces. Whereas in modern Judaism, women have roles in all four areas. And I'd like to finish by giving you just a little timeline of the evolution of women in Judaism, starting with 1846 in Germany with the Breslau Conference. At that time, women were granted privileges that had previously not been granted to them. For example, women were not counted in prayer services, and you have to have at least 10 Jews to hold a prayer service. That comes from the tradition of when the Jews had lost their second temple and were wandering around in the desert and were meeting in tents, and you had to have at least 10 male Jews to hold a service and to do certain things. Well, in 1846, women began to be included in that. That's called a minyan, the minimum number allowed, which is 10. There is a daily prayer that was used in Orthodox Judaism where the man thanks God for not having made him a woman. Seriously. And that was dropped. That was part of the morning prayers. The Torah and the Talmud, women are now taught Torah and Talmud. Talmud is an interpretation of the Torah. And men and women sit together. All of those things were brought about from this conference.